And when we say divorce for compensation, the stronger position, as I said before, when we talked about khula, is that this compensation is limited to her dowry. That is the position I believe to be stronger, that the compensation is limited to her dowry. She need to give him back the dowry he gave her. Okay. Inshallah, we can do that. So, are you ready? Bismillah, to proceed. Well, now we'll go over the bab al-Iddah or al-Iddah. Al-Iddah would be the plural of Iddah. Chapter on the Iddah, waiting period. Imam al-Qudamah rahimahullah said in his book al-Umdat, وَلَا عِدَّةَ عَلَى مَنْ فَارَقَهَا زَوْجُهَا فِي الْحَيَاةِ قَبْلَ الْمَسِيسِ لِقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا نَكَحْتُمُ الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ ثُمَّ طَلَّقْتُمُوهُنَّ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ تَمَسُّوهُنَّ فَمَا لَكُمْ عَلَيْهِنَّ مِنْ عِدَّةٍ تَعْتَدُّونَهَا. There is no iddah binding on a woman whose husband left her during his life without having intercourse or seclusion with her. This is because of the statement of Allah Almighty, O you who believed, when you marry believing women and then divorce them before you have touched them, then there is not for you any waiting period to count concerning them. So there is no iddah binding on a woman whose husband left her during his life. So iddah, the concept of iddah itself, or the waiting period, iddah has many wisdoms. And it is not limited, the wisdoms are not limited to the sort of ensuring the absence of pregnancy. Because confusion of lineages can take place if there is no separation between two marriages. And disputation of lineages is certainly a great problem, and it causes so much grief to everyone involved, including the children. So the sort of making sure that there is no confusion of lineage is very essential, very important. But iddah is not limited to this, because iddah can be also for women who are not menstruating. A 70-year-old woman, will she have iddah? Yes. So is iddah then just because the ensuring that there is no pregnancy? No. Because why is a 70-year-old woman having an iddah? And why is it that the iddah of the woman whose husband died is different from the iddah of the woman who was divorced? Therefore, it is not simply about, or it's not only about ensuring the sort of the lack of pregnancy, And keep in mind that there is also one other point that is important. Then when we say that al-hukm yaduru ma'a al-idda wujudan wa adama, so al-hukm yaduru ma'a al-illa. Yadur means revolve. So here would be the ruling is what? Hinges on the illah, hinges on the effective cause. In order for you to employ this principle and say that the ruling hinges on the effective cause, you will have to make sure that this is the effective cause and not the hikmah. This is the illah and not the hikmah, certainly with some caveats here, and I will come to say that sometimes the hukmah would be attached to the hikmah and not only the illah. The difference between illah and hikmah, which is important to understand, is that illah is quantifiable, well-defined, measurable. So when we say that the illah of shortening the prayers is travel, the hikmah is removal of hardship, rafa' al-mashaqqa, removal of hardship. The illah is travel. So travel is measurable, quantifiable, well-defined. Removal of hardship is not. Removal of hardship is the ultimate hikmah. So why is travel, beyond the illah, is a hikmah. But we're attaching the hukm to the illah, because if we start to attach the hukm to the hikmah, then it will be vague, unquantifiable, unmeasurable, not well-defined, and the law will be subject to whims and biases of the people. Is it clear? Okay. But sometimes the scholars, like some of the Hanbalis and Amidi and Ibn al-Haj and others, they said that if the hikmah is zahir, apparent, wa mundabit. Mundabit would be measurable, I guess. So if we have those two conditions, then we can attach some of the ahkam to the hikmah. If it is apparent and mundabit, sort of clearly identifiable, measurable, etc., then we can attach. You will find that the Hanbalis in particular doing this. Despite our reputation, but you find the Hanbalis doing this. Like if you think about the ahkam or the rulings of al-jam' in the Hanbali madhab, combining the prayers. Combining the prayers for the sick, combining the prayers for, someone who's like for like hard labor and things of that nature. Or I'm sorry, not hard labor, but if someone is afraid that he would suffer, his livelihood would suffer if he went to prayer, or if he did the prayer on time, like a baker whose dough will spoil, or like something of that nature. So when they talk about combining the prayers, do we have something for the combining of the prayers from the Prophet ﷺ for the sick? Not traceable to the Prophet. I mean, the mustahada is not necessarily sick. The mustahada has a problem, that is quite obvious, because you can't pray when you're menstruating, and if your menstrual period is prolonged, then it is quite obvious for the mustahada. The concept of combining the prayers will make sort of obvious sense. But the Hanbalis, they allow the combining of the prayers for the sick. Where is the illah here? It looks like they are going a little bit farther beyond the illah to the hikmah. And combining the prayers also for someone whose livelihood will suffer if he prayed on time. Where is the illah here? I think they're going to the hikmah. Because the Prophet ﷺ allowed combining the prayers in rain, combining the prayers for the traveler. These things they're coming from the Prophet ﷺ directly, but for rain it is, in the masjid and so on. Combining the prayers for fear, like war, fear, rain, and travel. So where is the combining of prayers for sickness, combining the prayers for sort of fear of loss of livelihood or something of that nature? It seems that they are factoring in the hikmah, and they're going beyond the illah, which is the immediate cause, to the cause of the cause, the hikmah, the rationale behind the immediate cause or the effective cause, which is the illah. But only when it is zahir and mundabit, apparent and measurable. One thing that we have to be, so someone can say, the hikmah is zahir and mundabit, to ensure that there is no pregnancy is zahir and mundabit, so there should not be any more iddah for women, because nowadays with a lab test we can figure out if she is pregnant or not. And the idea here is the illah is not always singular. And there is something called juz' al-illah, incomplete illah. And if the illah is not singular, then we cannot attach the ruling to one of them. We cannot make the ruling hinge on one of them. And in this case, what makes us comfortable that the illah is not singular? Like I told you, why would a woman who's postmenopausal have iddah? Why is it different, the duration of iddah between a woman, معتدة من الوفاة, woman talaq, the one who's having iddah after the death of her husband, and the one who's having iddah after divorce. So it is, we have to, having said that, is it important to understand the illah and the hikmah? Understand the illah and the hikmah for some of the contemporary applications that we will come to discuss later. If the woman in her sort of haid period, not menopausal yet, did not have haid for extended period of time, it's just her quit having haid. What should we do now? Should we say that she will have to basically wait if she knows the cause, particular sickness that made her haid cease? So if we know the cause, they will say she will wait until she reaches menopause, and then she will have iddah by the months, 3 months. Can we now say, no, we should give her a test, make sure that she is not pregnant, and then add the 3 months of iddah and make her wait that? So now, even though it is not only about the pregnancy, but it is important to know what the ilal are and what the main illah is, because that is the main illah. To the point that some of the fuqaha, when they talk about illah, they only mention that one illah to ensure the lack of pregnancy. So it is important so that we come, when we talk about contemporary fiqh and we talk about tajdeed, we talk about renewal of the religion, we talk about taghayyur al-fatwa, should it be consequential that we can now know for certain whether a woman is pregnant or not? Should it be consequential to these rulings? Yes, it will not basically demolish the whole sort of structure, but should it be factored in? Should it be taken in consideration? And that is what we sort of came to adopt, Amja actually, and you will not find a lot of councils on Allah. You will not find this ijtihad quite common, but this particular ijtihad comes from Amja. And I remember in this meeting that there was the meeting where we reviewed the Amja family code and reviewed all of these rulings. We had very distinguished scholars, well-grounded in knowledge. Some of our senior mashayikh, Sheikh Hussein Hamad Hassan, Sheikh Ali Salous, Sheikh Wahab al-Zuhaili, Sheikh Muhammad Rafat Uthman, Sheikh Omar Sulaiman al-Ashqar, Sheikh Ahmad Taharayan, many of the senior mashayikh, and certainly Sheikh Salah al-Sawi, Sheikh Muhammad al-Zuhaili, and others. So these sort of contemporary fatwa that you'll find that I'll be citing the Amja family code here. When I cite the Amja family code, these discussions were had in the presence of some of the most distinguished senior mashayikh. And they took in consideration the main illah, which is the ensuring of the lack of pregnancy, when they discussed the various rulings that are pertinent to iddat, or the waiting period. So that was, I guess, an important introduction. the Sheikh then, so the first thing the Sheikh started by is this, saying there is no iddah binding on a woman whose husband left her during his life. And why is he saying during his life? Because there is a iddah even before consummation if the husband died without having intercourse or seclusion with her before the consummation of the marriage. You know, consummation of the marriage would count by either intercourse or seclusion. So before consummation of the marriage, you know, ثم طلقتموهن من قبل أن تمسوهن فما لكم عليهن من عدة تعتدونها. So if you marry them and divorce them before you touch them, then there is no iddah that you should count against them. So when we come to this discussion, because there are a lot of variables here, it is important that you have a hierarchy or you use an algorithm. Use an algorithm. Let me start with the algorithm so that when we have the discussion, you will have the map clear in your mind. Okay. The algorithm is the most important variable here is which one? Consummation. That's a good one.
Whether or not they have it.
No, but no. What will determine this? Tuhur. So consummation is a variable. An important variable. Is she pregnant or not? An important variable. Does she have periods or not? Menstruate within her menstruating age? That's an important variable. Was she divorced or her husband died? That's an important variable. How do you prioritize the variables? That is where you want an algorithm. The first question you have to ask is, was she pregnant or not? Because that's the most important variable. That overrides anything. That overrides anything. Was she pregnant or not? Pregnant. Yes. No. She was pregnant. What is her iddah until childbirth? Delivery. وولاة الأحمال يجرهن أن يضعن حملهن. And then, if she is not pregnant, what would be the next question to ask? No, not consummation. Death or divorce? Death or divorce. Well, okay, so let's say death. Death, yes, no. Okay, yes, no. Yes, 4 plus 10. 4 months plus 10 days. Unless she was pregnant, because that's the first I started with. We were done with the pregnant, okay? So death, yes or no? Yes, 4 months and 10 days. No. No, right? What would be the next question? Consummation. No, we said if she's not, if it's not death, then it has to be divorce. So yeah, so no death, then it means divorce. So if she was divorced, then what would be the next question? Keep in mind that I just wanted to tell you one thing that may be pertinent here, that if we're talking about a batil nikah, that is invalid nikah, there is no waiting period. Fasid nikah, that is invalid according to us Hanbalis, but some of the scholars consider that there is a waiting period. Zina, fornication without nikah, there is a waiting period. So because the waiting period here is to ensure, and certainly it's controversial whether there is a waiting period or not, but at least according to us Hanbalis, there is a waiting period after zina, and it is just like the regular waiting period for the mutallaqa, for the divorced woman. So is that clear? Because I told you that consummation would come right after, because if it's not death, it is divorce. But I just wanted to say some contingencies here. Fasid nikah will be treated as nikah when it comes to this, which is the fasid irregular nikah, not invalid. Irregular meaning it is does not count according to us. That is nikah without wali. Nikah without a wali. We Hanbalis don't count to this. This is not nikah. But the Hanafis do. The Malikis, to some extent, with some women, recognize this. Therefore, we Hanbalis cannot say that this is batil, invalid, and inconsequential, completely inconsequential. So to respect the disagreement, we will basically treat this as consequential, even though it's not really the proper nikah for us. But so that is fasid nikah. But batil nikah, invalid, is when she married in her period. Does anyone with any scholar approve of this marriage? No. So she married in her period, knowing and everything. Is this a fasid nikah or a batil nikah? Batil nikah, invalid. No scholar validated that. Is there a waiting period to be observed after a batil nikah? No. But what if they had intercourse? Then she will observe the waiting period. Not according to the Hanbalis, although Hanafis and Shafi'is do not consider a waiting period for the zina. Not because of not out of respect for the nikah itself, but because there was intercourse. There needs to be ensuring the lack of pregnancy. So the Hanbalis in the authorized position then will require a waiting period that is just like any divorced woman. These are some important contingencies. Going back to our algorithms, and here, just add asterisks. Consummation. Yes and no. Has the marriage been consummated? Yes and no. Or actually write no here, and yes here. No. Write no here, and yes here, because I want to branch off from yes. No, then there is no waiting period, right? No, there is no waiting period. What if it is yes? What would be the next question to ask? Huh? No. Iddah will be observed whether the divorce was finalized with recourse, finalized without recourse, unfinalized, whether it was fasakh, annulment, whether it was nikah shubha, nikah fasid, whether it was whatever, iddah will be observed, even will be observed after zina. Exactly. The next question to be asked is, هل هي من ذوات الأقراء, meaning is she in a menstruating age? So in that, or واللائي لم يحضن من نسائكم إن ارتبتم فعدتهن 3 أشهر واللائي يئسن من المحيض من نسائكم إن ارتبتم فعدتهن 3 أشهر واللائي لم يحض ولا ترى حمال أجلهن يضعن حملهن. So واللائي يئسن من المحيض من نسائكم إن ارتبتم فعدتهن 3 أشهر, those who are menopausal, like they can't have menstruation anymore, of your women, their iddah is 3 months, and those who did not have who did not have their period yet. Their iddah is also 3 months. Now, so within that age, which is, let's say, between 10 to like 50 or 55, that menstruating age, when she is having her menstrual periods, so we'll say menstruating or not, menstruating or not. Then, yes and no. If it is no, what is it? 3 months. If it is yes, what is it? 3 periods. What are the 3 periods? Hanbalis and Hanafis? Menstrual periods. Shafi'is and Malikis, and another position in the Hanbali madhab? 3 pure periods. 3 menstrual periods, 3 pure periods, I guess. Okay, so is this clear? You have to follow this algorithm to figure out the iddah. Every first question, pregnant or not? Pregnant. Childbirth. Not pregnant. Was it death or divorce? Death. 4 months and 10 days. Regardless of anything. Consummated, not consummated, regardless of anything. 4 months and 10 days. Not death, then it is divorce. And even in nikah al-fasid, this will apply to nikah al-fasid. Zina will also be applicable, and so on. So, consummated, not consummated is the next question. Not consummated, there is no period to be observed at all. Consummated, is she in her menstrual age or not? Yes or no? No, she will have to wait 3 months. Yes, she will have to wait 3 menstrual periods according to the Hanbalis and Hanafis, or 3 pure periods according to the Malikis and Shafi'is, and a position in the Hanbali method. Okay, let's remove this. Should have left it. Anyway. So then the Sheikh said, والمعتدات ينقسمن 4 أقسام إحداهن أولاة الأحمال فعدتهن أن يضعن حملهن ولو كانت حاملا بتوأمين لم تنقضي عدتها حتى تضع الثانية منهما والحمل الذي تنقضي به العدة وتصير به الأمة أم ولد ما يتبين فيه شيء من خلق الإنسان. The women observing the iddah belong to one of 4 types. First, those who are pregnant. Their iddah is until they give birth. So the first thing that we started with is pregnancy. If a woman is carrying twins, her iddah is not over until she gives birth to the second. The pregnancy whose end brings about the conclusion of the iddah, and which gives the slave woman the status of walad, mother of the master's child, is that which has discernible human features, So, bottom line, when does the pregnant woman's iddah end? Upon childbirth. When we talk about childbirth, if we have multiple sort of fetuses, when does it end? By the coming out of the last fetus, completely coming out of the last fetus. So there's nothing in the womb now. Okay, but which pregnancy counts in this regard? Like if something came out that is not discernible as human, would this count? No, we will not count this as a pregnancy. So the pregnancy that will count in this regard is when she when she delivers, whether it's alive or dead or anything, but when she delivers something that has human features, that we can recognize that was actually pregnancy. Now, in our times, should we ask the experts or not? Ask the experts. Ask the doctors, because the means, the wasila by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attached this ruling, Allah did not attach the ruling to a particular means, a particular wasila, tool. Therefore, it is about, the expertise of the experts. So when the midwives used to say, this was a pregnancy, we believed them. Should we not believe the doctors now? Do the doctors have more advanced sort of ways, techniques to figure out if this was pregnancy? Yes, and then so we'll just go by what the doctors say. Then the Sheikh said, الثاني اللواتي. If anyone has a prior arrangement, please don't hesitate to leave in the middle of the class. We just started this, so I'm just going to finish it. But sorry about that anyway. الثاني اللواتي توفي أزواجهن يتربصن بأنفسهن 4 أشهر و10 والإماء على النصف من ذلك وما قبل المسيس وبعده سواء. Second, after the pregnancy, the second question to ask, those whose husbands have died, they wait for 4 months and 10 days. This is the same whether death happened before or after consummation. Before or after consummation. So without consummation, there is no iddah if we are talking about separation during the life of the two parties. But there is iddah if it is about the death of the husband. So the second is death. When the husband dies, she waits 4 months and 10 days. الثالث المطلقات من ذوات الأقراء أو القروء يتربصن بأنفسهن 3 قروء. Third, the divorced women who menstruate, they wait 3 qurs. Does he talk about the qur here? Anyway, we talked about the qur, and it is the menstrual period according to the authorized position. The Prophet ﷺ said, دعي الصلاة أيام أقرائك, leave the prayer during the days of your aqra, which hints to the fact that qur is the menstrual period, is not the pure period. It's a huge controversy among the scholars because qur is polysemic, meaning could mean different things. It could mean the pure period or the menstrual period in the language. That's why they disagreed. But in the language of the Prophet, it seems that he used it to refer to the menstrual period, and that's why the Hanbalis and Hanafis consider the qur to be the menstrual period. Okay. So women who are in menstrual age, they wait 3 qurs. And like I said before, when you wait 3 qurs, that means that 3 complete menstrual periods. If he divorces her during 1, that will not count. She will have 3 complete menstrual periods. But for the people who count by the pure periods, if he divorces her during 1 pure period, does this count as the first? Yes, it does. Yeah. During a pure period, that period will count as the first pure period. During a menstrual period, that period will not count, for the people who count by the menstrual periods, will not count as the first period. Then the Sheikh said, الرابع اللاتي يئسن من المحيض فعدتهن 3 أشهر واللائي لم يحضن. Fourth, those who are postmenopausal or premenarcheal, their waiting period is 3 months. How do you count them, the 3 months? He divorced her, okay, Muharram 14th. And then we have Safar, and then we have Rabi'a al-Awwal, and then we have Rabi'a al-Thani. Okay, So they divorce her Muharram 14th. How does she figure out the 3 months? She will have to wait until the end of Muharram to see if Muharram was 29 or 30 days. If Muharram was 29 days, then how many days she waited in Muharram? 15. If Muharram was 30 days, then she waited 16. Okay? So she will wait all of Safar, wait all of Rabi' al-Awwal. How many days of Rabi' al-Thani will she wait? Huh? Depending, 15 or 16. If Muharram was 29 days, she will wait 15 days. If Muharram was 30 days, I'm sorry, that would be 30 minus. It will be the opposite. Muharram, okay, so Muharram was 29 days, so she waited 15 days in Muharram. How many days are left? 30 minus 15, 15. Muharram was 30 days, so she waited 16 days in Muharram. How many days are left? 30 minus 16 is 14. So 15 or 14 days. Then the Sheikh says, ويشرع التربص مع العدة في مواضع ثلاثة أحدها إذا ارتفع حيضها لا تدري ما رفعه فإنها تتربص 9 أشهر ثم تعتد عدة الآيسات وإن عرفت ما رفع الحيض فإنها لم تزل في عدة حتى يعود الحيض فتعتد به. It is prescribed to wait beyond the Iddah in 3 situations. First, if her menstruation ceases without a known cause. In this case, she waits 9 months and then she observes the iddah of the postmenopausal woman. If she knows what caused the cessation of her menstruation, she continues to observe the iddah until her menstruation resumes. Until her menstruation resumes. So now she is 30 years old. Should be menstrual age. She's not, she has secondary amenorrhea. In other words, she's not having her periods. Months go on end, she doesn't have her period. So what are we going to do here? So they said, does she knows what caused this or not? She knows, yes. She doesn't know, no. If she does not know what caused it, it will be 9 plus 3. 9 because that's the average or common period of pregnancy, plus 3 months for the women who do not menstruate. Okay? Yes, she knows what caused the period to end. She waits until, she waits until the age of menopause and then adds 3 months. So she could wait, quite a long time. So that is when the Amjad family code said to both cases, pregnancy test plus 3 months. Because the Sahaba, when they said 9 plus 3, and that is the ijtihad that came from the Sahaba. There is nothing that came from the Prophet ﷺ concerning this. Ijtihad of the Sahaba, when they said 9 plus 3, they wanted to say 9 because that is the sort of the common duration of pregnancy. Plus 3. So can we remove the 9 now because we can tell for certain if she is pregnant or not? Yes, but we cannot remove the 3 because iddah is not only about the pregnancy. So we're keeping the 3, but we're removing the 9 because what we can do is that there is no pregnancy, so we do not need the 9. That is the point in this. Okay. And as I said, and as I told you before, the Amjad family code was discussed in the presence of some of our great senior mashayikh, such as Sheikh Hussein Hamad Hassan, who died, Allah yarhamu, recently, and Sheikh Ali Salous, and Sheikh Abu Zuhairi, rahimahullah, also, Sheikh Muhammad Rafat Uthman, and Sheikh Ahmad Taha Rayyan, and Sheikh Umar Sulaiman al-Ashqar, and Sheikh Salah al-Sawi, and Sheikh Muhammad al-Zuhairi, and many others. Okay. Then the Sheikh said the second condition where the iddah will be more than this is when her husband goes missing. الثاني امرأة المفقود الذي فقد في مهلكة أو من بين أهله فلم يعلم خبره تتربص 4 سنين ثم تعتد للوفاة وإن فقد في غير هذا لم تنكح حتى تتيقن موته. Second, the missing husband who was lost in a dangerous situation or place with his whereabouts and condition unknown, his wife will wait 4 years and then she will observe the iddah for death of her husband. If he went missing in different situations such as traveling for business or the like, then she cannot marry until she becomes certain of his death. So clearly nothing came from the Prophet ﷺ about this. This was presented during the time of Umar, and someone went out to pray Isha and did not come back. It was not that he was lost in a perilous condition. He just went to pray Isha, did not come back. So Umar said that she would wait for 4 years. After the 4 years, she would have 4 months and 10 days because he would be declared dead. Sort of declared dead. So 4 years, 4 months, and 10 days. Now, Umar did not say that she would wait until, it's clear that he died. This was reported from Ali. And some reported it from the Prophet ﷺ, but it is not authentically traceable to the Prophet at all. So, nowadays the laws have tried to lighten that burden. Amjad code says that the woman will take her case to the judge, and the judge can separate her from him because of a darar, talaq al-darar. That is court-enforced divorce because of the harm. Because of the harm. Because if we say that she will have to wait, the other position in the Hanbali madhab that is considered authorized is that she has to wait until he reaches 90 years of age. And then she waits 4 months and 10 days afterwards. And that's certainly because, keep in mind that like here in America, how often do people get married and then the husband sort of dissolves? How often have you heard from sisters that their husbands are missing? So they go to a different state and they just you can never find them. They just go missing. Should we tell all those sisters, wait until he is 90 years of age and then make iddah for wafat? That certainly would not be appropriate anyway. So in the Amjad family code, the ruling about this is go to the court, do your best to sort of figure out the whereabouts of that person and reach out to him. The court will try to do this, and if unable, then sort of initiate the court or enforce divorce because of the harm. And that is what's right. Then the Sheikh said, الثالث إذا ارتابت المرأة بعد قضاء عدتها لظهور أمارات الحمل لم تنكح حتى تزول الريبة فإن نكحت لم يصح النكاح وإن ارتابت بعد نكاحها لم يبطل نكاحها إلا إن علمت أنها نكحت وهي حامل. Third, if the woman doubts the end of her iddah after its conclusion because signs of pregnancy appear, she cannot marry until the doubts end. If she marries, her marriage is invalid. If she starts to have the doubts after she marries another man, the marriage will not be voided unless she comes to be certain that she was pregnant when she got married. So the woman, is still, after her iddah ended, is still, not sure, feels something, not sure that she's not pregnant. She must not marry until she is confident that she is not pregnant. If she marries, her marriage is invalid. What if she gets married and then she starts to feel that I may be pregnant? She got married first, and then after that she starts to feel something and she fears that she may be pregnant. What does she do in this case? The marriage is not invalidated because when she got married she was not in doubt. So the marriage will not be invalidated, yet they cannot have intercourse until the doubt is removed. Until the doubt is removed. And then وَمَتَى نَكَحَتِ الْمُعْتَدَّةَ فَنِكَاحُهَا بَاطِلٌ وَيُفَرَّقُ بَيْنَهُمَا. When a woman gets married during her iddah, her marriage is void and the two must be separated. فإن فرق بينهما قبل الدخول أتمت عدة الأول وإن كان بعد الدخول بنت على عدة الأول من حين دخل بها الثاني واستأنفت العدة للثاني وله نكاحها بعد قضاء العدتين. If they are separated before the consummation, she then finishes the iddah from the first marriage. If the separation takes place after the consummation, she resumes the iddah from the first marriage, which was interrupted at the time of the consummation of the second marriage. After the end of the iddah from the first marriage, she will observe another iddah from the second marriage. He, the second husband, may marry her after the conclusion of both. I will read the next paragraph so that we get done, and this is the last thing in this chapter. وإن أتت بولد من أحدهما انقضت به عدته واعتدت للآخر وإن أمكن أن يكون منهما أري القافة فألحق بمن ألحقوه منهما وانقضت به عدته وانتقضت به عدتها منه واعتدت للآخر. If she gives birth to a child from one of them, her iddah from him ends and she continues her iddah from the other. If the child could possibly be from either one of them, then he or she will be shown to the physiognomists al-Qafa, and attributed to whomever they attribute him or her to. Her iddah from the one who gets the child is ended, and the iddah from the other one continues. Okay. It's complicated, but will be easy, inshallah. So she got divorced from the first man, and in her iddah, she married the other man. So divorced from the first man. So marriage to second man during the iddah. During the iddah. Now, what do we do here? We separate between her and the first. We will have to ask a question. Consummated or not? Did she consummate with the second man, or it was only a contract? So, consummation. Yes. No. If she did not consummate with the second man, is there an iddah for the second man to observe? No. So we will separate her from the second man. Then she will observe the iddah for the first one only. finish her iddah from the first one.
Now, when you say separate, it means that the divorce will be
Yes. No, separation, because the marriage is invalid. You don't need to divorce them. The marriage is invalid. Divorce happens only after a marriage. This is an invalid marriage. Separate them. They're not married. So then she finishes her iddah from the first man. Can she go back to the second man? Yes. Yes, she can go back to the second man. Okay. And that's according to all of them. She can go back to the second man, despite the fact that she got married to him during the iddah. Why? Because they have not consummated the marriage yet. What if they consummated the marriage? What if they consummated the marriage? In this case, if they consummated the marriage, we will separate between them. So they consummated the marriage, and so, after 1 month of her iddah, they consummated the marriage, let us say. All of the time where they were together having sort of marital relationships, that would be an interruption of the iddah. From the time of separation, when she's separated from the second man, she observes the rest of the iddah of the first man, and after that ends, she observes iddah for the second man, and after that end, of course she can go back to the first, but can she go back to the second? The majority said yes, she can go back to the second, even though there is a controversial report from Omar that they should never go back together. But the majority said, even if this was zina, she can get married to someone with whom she committed zina. So she can go back to the second man, afterwards. Now, if she gave birth, she got married during her iddah, and then she gave birth while she is with the second man. If she gave birth before 6 months because what is the shortest duration of pregnancy? 6 months. But unless the experts say that the child was born prematurely, that would be a different story. But in classical fiqh, if she gave birth before 6 months from the second marriage, if she gave birth before 6 months from the second marriage, then we know for sure that this is the child of the first husband or second? First. What is the longest duration of pregnancy? 4 years. But really not 4, but 4 years according to the majority. Hanafis and another position in the Hanbali madhab said 2. Ibn Hazm said 9 months. Muhammad ibn al-Hakam said 1 year. Most of the laws in Muslim countries go by 1 year because that is adding a little bit of cushion for safety after the 9 months. Like post terms, usually they don't go beyond 10 months. But you add a little bit of cushion, and then 1 year would be the most reasonable one. That's the position of Muhammad ibn al-Hakam. He was the student of Imam Malik and became Shafi'i and then went back to being a Maliki one more time and so on. But that's the law in many of the Muslim countries. But for them, for the Hanbalis and for the majority, it was 4 years. So if she gives birth after 4 years from separating from the first, and 6 months from marrying the second, then we know for sure it is the second, not the first, the second's child, not the first. Because, it can't be from the first, because it's more than 4 months after separation from the first, 4 years after separation from the first. What if it is between the 6 months and the 4 years? So it is after 1 year from the second marriage, but it is still within 2 years from separation from the first husband, or 1 year and 1.5 years from separation from the first husband. How do we figure this out? Physiognomist, qafa, to figure out if he belongs here or there. But nowadays, DNA, yes. Nowadays, we use the DNA to figure this out. We use DNA to figure all of that stuff out. But so we would use DNA to figure this out. When we figure it out, the iddah, whoever this child will belong to, her iddah from this man will end upon childbirth. And she will need to observe her iddah from the other one after childbirth. Afterwards, after the 2 iddahs, can she go back to the second man? The majority said yes. Malik and a Hanbali position said no. And keep in mind that the majority said yes. The Hanafis and Shafi'is said yes, she can go back to the second immediately after she finishes her iddah from the first. She does not need to observe another iddah from the second. But the Hanbali said no, she can go back to him, but after she observes 2 iddahs. The iddah from the first, and then iddah from the second, and then she can go back to whichever one of them she wants to go back to. We have only 15 minutes to end because the master they have an event in 15 minutes. So we will have 15 minutes for the most pressing questions about these topics. Yes.